Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I am your host, and today we're going to do something a little different. Usually we're tearing apart a specific business strategy or maybe looking at some new piece of tech that's going to change how we work. But today we are looking at language, specifically an idiom.
Right, and I'm here to walk us through the research on this. It's a phrase I guarantee everyone listening has used or, at least heard in a boardroom probably a dozen times in the last year alone.
Oh, absolutely. It is the ultimate corporate warning label. The phrase is, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I want to start by acknowledging something that we usually ignore because it's such a cliche. If you actually stop and visualize that image,
It's horrifying.
seriously, if you strip away the familiarity, you have a visual of someone tossing a basin of wastewater out a window and whoop, there
Yeah.
goes the infant. It's a total disaster.
It really is, and that violence is actually crucial to why it works. It's not a polite suggestion. It's a shock tactic. It's designed to wake you up.
So here is the mission for today's deep dives. We have a stack of notes on the etymology and the historical usage of this phrase. We are going to trace this back 500 years. We're going to look at how it jumped from German satire to English political discourse on slavery. But I don't just want a history lesson.
Right. You want the so what? Like, why does this specific arrangement of words stick with us for centuries?
Exactly. I want to understand what this idiom actually teaches us about decision-making. Because the sources suggest this isn't just about being clumsy, it's about a very specific cognitive failure that happens to smart people.
It is. And to understand that failure, we really have to start with the foundational definition provided in the source material. It categorizes this strictly as an avoidable error.
An avoidable error. I mean, avoidable implies intent, or at least the capacity for control,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you didn't have to do it.
Precisely. It's defined as an error where something of value, the essential, is eliminated while trying to get rid of something unwanted, the superfluous. But there is a second part to that definition in the research that I found really fascinating. It attributes this error to excessive zeal.
Excessive zeal. That is such a specific diagnostic. It sounds almost medical.
It changes the whole complexion of the mistake, doesn't it? It implies you aren't being lazy, you aren't being malicious, you are being too enthusiastic.
Right, like you're just...
You are so eager to fix the problem, to clean the house, cut the budget, reorganize the department, that your momentum carries you right off the cliff.
That resonates so much. It's the manager who comes in to fix a team culture and ends up firing the high performers because they, push back on the new rules.
That is a classic baby out with the bathwater scenario. You're so focused on the dirty water, the bad culture, the old way of doing things, that you purge the value along with it.
So we have this framework. Avoidable error caused by excessive zeal. But this didn't start in a modern management textbook. I was actually surprised by the origin story here. This isn't originally English.
No, not at all. If you want the source code for this one, you really have to go to Germany. The idiom derives from the German proverb, das Kind mit dem Bade ausschütten.
My German is non-existent, but the translation notes say that means why.
Pouring the child out with the bath. And we can date this with incredible precision. The earliest recorded instance appears in the year 1512.
1512. So we are talking about a world that is barely out of the Middle Ages. This is pre-Shakespeare.
Right. And the context is really telling. It appeared in a work by Thomas Murner. The book was called Narrenbeschwörung.
Which translates to...
Appeal to Fools.
Appeal to Fools. Okay, I love that. So the very first time this concept enters the written record, it's not in a medical text or a parenting guide.
Yeah.
It's in a satire about idiots.
Exactly. Murner included a woodcut illustration in the text. And it is blunt. It literally depicts a woman tossing a baby out along with the wastewater. But because it's in Appeal to Fools, we know exactly how Murner viewed this. This wasn't a tragedy of circumstance. It was an act of stupidity.
It's a failure of discrimination.
That's the key word, discrimination. The fool is the person who cannot distinguish between the waste and the treasure. The fool treats the entire contents of the tub as one object, tub contents, and just dumps it.
So the wise person sees water and baby as two separate entities sharing a space. The fool just sees stuff to get rid of.
Exactly. And the fool acts with that excessive zeal we talked about. Just get it out of here.
Now, usually these folks saying stay in the realm of peasants and woodcuts. A stitch in time saves nine, that sort of thing. But what's interesting about this specific phrase is that it didn't stay there. It graduated.
It really did. It moved from folk wisdom to high intellectual theory very quickly. The source material lists a who's who of German intellectual history who use this phrase as a core part of their arguments.
Give us the list. Who are we talking about?
We are talking about Martin Luther, the reformer, Johannes Kepler, the astronomer who essentially rewrote the laws of planetary motion, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, the literary giant, and Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor who unified Germany.
That is a staggering lineup. You have religion, science, literature, and statecraft.
And later, you have novelists like Thomas Mann and Günter Grass. But looking at that first group, Luther, Kepler, Bismarck, do you see the pattern?
Well, they're all disruptors. They change the world.
They are system-level disruptors. And that's why this specific metaphor became so valuable to them. Think about Martin Luther.
Okay, so let's unpack Luther. He is trying to reform the church in the 1500s.
Right, and let's be honest, the church in the 1500s, it had plenty of dirty water, corruption, selling of indulgences, political maneuvering. Luther's goal is to throw that water out. He wants to clean the house.
But, and this is the terrifying part for him, he has to do it without destroying the Christian faith itself.
That is the baby. If his zeal to clean the church destroys the believer's connection to God or fractures the foundation of the faith, he has failed. He has thrown the baby out with the bathwater.
That puts the excessive zeal definition into high definition. Luther was accused of exactly that, of being so zealous against corruption that he broke the church.
Exactly. He had to be incredibly precise. And then look at Kepler.
Science is a little different, though. Science is about replacing old ideas with new ones.
True. But Kepler was operating in a time when astronomy was mixed up with astrology and ancient Greek philosophy. He had to filter through centuries of bad data and wrong assumptions, the bathwater, to find the mathematical truths hidden inside.
So if he just said, all ancient science is garbage, he loses.
Right. If he throws out the whole classical tradition, he might lose the geometric principles he needs to prove his theory. He had to save the baby, the data, while tossing the bathwater, the superstition.
So for these guys, this wasn't just a cute saying, it was a strategic risk assessment.
It was the central tension of their work. How do I change the paradigm without destroying the foundation?
And Bismarck. That feels like the highest stakes of all.
Statecraft is the ultimate bathwater challenge. Bismarck is trying to unify a bunch of disparate German states into one nation. He has to get rid of the old, inefficient local governances. That's the dirty water.
But if he strips away too much of the local culture or identity?
You get rebellion. You lose the nation you're trying to build. You lose the baby.
It's fascinating that a phrase from a woodcut about a foolish housewife became the guiding principle for the unification of Germany.
It speaks to how universal the problem is. Categorization is hard work. Whether you are washing a baby or building an empire, you have to know what to keep.
So that's the German pedigree. It's deep, it's intellectual, it's high stakes. But we are speaking English? How did it cross the channel? Did it just drift over with trade?
Not exactly. We can actually point to a specific literary bridge, a writer named Thomas Carlyle.
Carlyle. Okay. When is this?
This is 1849, so we've jumped forward about 300 years from Murner's woodcut.
And what is the context? Because the notes here mention slavery.
Yes. This is where we have to be really precise with the historical context. Carlyle wrote an essay in 1849 addressing what was known then as the Negro question.
That is a heavy pivot from German astronomy. How does the bathwater idiom fit into a debate on slavery?
Well, Carlyle was adapting the German proverb to make a point about abolition and economics. Let's look at the specific text because his phrasing is unique and it tells us how he viewed the problem.
I have the quote here. Carlyle wrote, "The Germans say you must empty out the bathing tub, but not the baby along with it. Fling out your dirty water with all zeal and set it careening down the kennels, but try if you can keep the little child."
Try if you can keep the little child.
It's that word zeal again. Fling out your dirty water with all zeal.
Yes. And based strictly on the text provided, we can see his argument structure. The dirty water he is referring to is the institution of slavery. He is acknowledging that it needs to be flung out.
So he's engaging with the abolitionist argument. He's saying, yes, dump the water.
He is, but he uses the idiom to insert a condition. He's warning the British public and the government. He's saying, essentially, yes, end the system, but be careful. In his view, the baby represented the people, the enslaved population, and the economic structure that sustained them.
So he's arguing that a chaotic, zealous destruction of the system would harm the very people it was meant to help.
That's the application. He's warning against unintended consequences. He's saying that if you let your moral zeal drive the process without practical safeguards, you destroy the human beings caught in the gears.
It's a very stark application. We went from a woodcut about foolishness to a geopolitical debate about human bondage.
It shows the elasticity of the metaphor. It works for household chores, it works for scientific revolution, and it works for massive social upheaval.
But the core mechanism is always the same. You identify a bad thing, slavery, corruption, dirt.
Yeah.
You generate energy to remove it, that's the zeal. And in that rush, you threaten the good thing, the people, the faith, the child.
And the English language didn't stop with Carlyle. We've kept trying to reinvent this. The source material mentions a few variations that have popped up over the years.
Yeah, there was one I hadn't heard before, the champagne variation.
Ah, yes. Throw out the champagne with the cork.
That is attributed to George Bernard Shaw, right?
Yes, specifically in his writings on Shakespeare.
I have to say, I prefer the baby version. The champagne one feels incredibly low stakes.
It is low stakes. That's why I think it never really caught on in the same way. If you throw out the champagne, what happens? You're out $50, you're disappointed, you have to drink water.
Right. Nobody dies.
But with the baby, it's tragic, it's irreversible. And I think that's why the original idiom has survived for 500 years. It bypasses the logic center of your brain and goes straight to the amygdala. It scares you into being careful.
It raises the cost of the error.
Exactly. If the cost of the error is just spilled wine, I might be careless. If the cost is a dead infant, I'm going to check the tub twice.
There was another variation in the notes that was less about the image and more about the grammar. Empty the baby out with the bath.
Yes. This one is subtle but interesting linguistically. Don't throw the baby out focuses on the object, the baby. You are holding the baby and throwing it.
But empty the baby out.
It focuses on the action of the vessel. You are emptying the tub. The baby just happens to be contents.
That sounds even more negligent. It sounds mechanical, like you didn't even know the baby was there.
It reinforces that idea of the blind spot. When you empty, you are focused on the void. You want the tub empty. You aren't looking at what is leaving.
Which brings us back to that. So what we promised in the beginning, we've looked at the history, the intellectuals, the variations. But if we distill this down for someone listening today, someone who isn't unifying Germany or reforming the church, what is the takeaway?
The synthesis really comes back to that second definition, discarding the essential while retaining the superfluous.
It sounds like a categorization problem.
It is fundamentally a categorization problem, and it's a problem of speed. Think about the zeal component. Zeal acts fast. Disgust acts fast. If I see dirty water, my instinct is, get this away from me immediately.
Right. It's a purge instinct. I just want it gone.
But discernment, figuring out what is essential, is slow. You have to stop. You have to put your hands in the murky water. You have to feel around for the child.
And nobody wants to put their hands in dirty water.
Exactly. It's unpleasant. It's much easier to just kick the tub over.
So the avoidable error happens when we prioritize the relief of getting rid of the bad thing over the duty of protecting the good thing.
That's a brilliant way to put it. We prioritize relief over protection. We prioritize the emptying over the baby.
The source material mentions that this is an avoidable error. I find that word avoidable almost hopeful.
It is hopeful. It implies that this isn't fate. You don't have to lose the baby. We often present these things as trade-offs. Oh, well, to make an omelet, you have to break a few eggs. To fix the company, we had to fire the whole department.
Right. We rationalize the loss of the baby as collateral damage.
Exactly. But this idiom argues against that. It says, no, you idiot, you didn't have to throw the baby out. You just needed to be more careful. You needed to filter the water.
The goal is a clean baby, not an empty room.
I love that.
The goal is a clean baby, not an empty room.
That really sums up the wisdom of those German intellectuals. Whether it's Luther or Bismarck, they knew that an empty room, a destroyed church, a broken state was a failure, even if it was clean.
We have covered a lot of ground today. We started with a 1512 satire called Appeal to Fools, which is still the best book title I've heard all year.
It's a total classic.
We traveled through the minds of Kepler and Bismarck, seeing how they navigated the dirty water of their eras. We saw Carlyle use the phrase to warn against the dangers of zealous reform in the 1840s, and we've landed right back here.
It's a long journey for a proverb about hygiene.
But it all comes down to that one moment of decision, standing at the window with the tub.
And taking that one extra second to check what's inside.
I want to leave you with a final thought, inspired by that George Bernard Shaw variation, the champagne and the cork.
Okay, let's hear it.
We all have problems we're trying to solve right now. Maybe you're reorganizing a team. Maybe you're ending a relationship. Maybe you're just cleaning out your garage. You are ready to pop the cork. You have the zeal.
But the question remains.
In your rush to solve the problem, to pop that cork, are you about to spill the champagne? Are you so focused on the release of pressure that you're losing the value?
That is a question worth sitting with.
Think about it and check the tub. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.